Always assume that your customers are willing to pay a higher price than you think that they do, because you often look through your own lens of what you would be willing to pay, not what the market would be willing to pay. You can always go down. It's hard to go up.
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for on eBay.
It's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the new relationship between them. I'm Mark Stiving, and today our guest is Dave Daniels. Or do you go by David nowadays?
No, you know me as Dave, so I'm Dave.
Dave Daniels. Here are three things you want to know about Dave before we start. First, he's a friend that I worked with for many years while we were both instructors at Pragmatic. Dave is an expert at launch and marketing, but really launch. He created and sold the launch course to Pragmatic, and I had the privilege of teaching him how to teach the price course. And so both of us know price and launch, although he knows launch way better than I do, and I know price a little bit better than he does. So let's think of this as two experts talking. So Dave, how did you get into pricing? Did you ever get into pricing?
Well, in terms of pricing, yeah. I mean, I like a lot of people, had roles where pricing was important. I was a product manager, as product marketing manager. I had to bring products to market. Someone said, "What are we going to price this at?" I had bid desks and things like that I had to take care of. But my background is computer science and math. So when I think of doing pricing, I always think in terms of numbers, and it took me a long time to realize that it's not how much did it cost us to build it and then price it. It was like, how much are people willing to pay? Because some apparently are going, you throw the price out and they go, "Oh yeah, I'll do that." Boom. And you're like, I think we left money on the table on that.
That was
deal.
too easy.
It was too easy. We didn't have to negotiate or anything. Yeah, okay, send me the invoice. But it always came up as a big issue around launch, a lot. Mostly because in the launch planning process, it starts and everybody starts thinking about all the tactics, right? The promotional stuff. And then they forget about these important little business details, like how are we going to price the product? What's our pricing strategy? How are we going to price in this market versus that market? So that's how I got involved. And then I learned from the master. I got to learn from Mark.
Well, my question that I really want to know is, as a product manager, product marketer, and really, really well-versed in all that, because you've been teaching it for a long time as well by the time we met, and by the time you took the price course from me, was there anything in the price course that was new or unique or an aha or insightful?
Yeah. Oh, there were a lot of ahas. I'll just think of a few. One is this notion of which one or will I? Right? That which one or will I distinction. Am I making a comparison among a group of competitors, or are you the only game in town? And I remember vividly, we were in Boston and you were teaching me how to deliver the pricing class. And we went out to dinner and we're sitting there at that dinner and we're having a great dinner. And you go, "All right, this restaurant, is this a which one or a will I?" I'm looking at the menu and I gave you the wrong answer and you said, "No, it's this one." And you walked me through it. And then we drive in the car and you just randomly throw one out at me to see if I could get which is which. That was a really big aha. And, and I reflect, as soon as it clicked, I could like rewind my entire career and look at how many times I actually did that right and didn't realize it, and how many times we as an organization left a lot of money on the table.
Yeah.
A lot.
By the way, I hope I was nice to you at that restaurant.
Oh, you were always nice.
Okay, good.
You were always nice. You got to go pretty far to ruffle my feathers. So yeah, I mean, all right.
So let's, you brought up launch already, which we were going to talk about anyway, and pricing. If you were going to put pricing into a launch plan, where does it go? How do you fit that in there? What's it going to look like?
Yeah, that's in the at Braincraft we have a product launch framework, and one of the very first activity or what we call donuts because they're circles. The process is called the assessment, and we're trying to gather lots of information to kind of get the lay of the land and know what we're going to be up against. Is this going to be a slam dunk, or are we going to have a lot of work to do? And part of that is a questionnaire that goes with an inner team. And one of the questions is, hey, what's our pricing strategy? And has the pricing been done yet? And I'll lay bets that 9 out of 10 times the answer to that question is, oh yeah, right. We hadn't thought of that yet. So pricing is one of the very early things that needs to be decided before you get too deep into the weeds of all the promotional activities. So a launch plan is really about the strategy of how you're going to achieve your launch objectives. But you got to know what you're up against. Like, which segments are you going after? Do I need to price it this way in this segment and that different pricing in another segment? All right. So long story short is it's incredibly critical, and it has to be done early in the planning process.
So one of the things that seems unusual about that, by the way, I agree with you, but what seems unusual is it seems like somebody's already done the pricing when they built the business plan in the first place.
Nah, you would think so. That's a loaded question. Okay. All right. So the people who are listening, the audience, they're only going to have two kinds. The one kind is we get to this point where we feverishly ran through development to get the product ready, done the beta and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, get it out the door quick. And they're like, oh, we don't have a pricing model yet, so they need to figure it out. Or the other one is they're incredibly disciplined and structured. And yes, it was done. And for those of you who are listening, it will probably surprise you. And Mark and I have experience with working with a lot of companies all over the planet. You'd be surprised at how many big companies with names that you admire don't do this until the last second because they haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, I think if they built a business plan, someone took a wag at a price and said,
Yeah.
hey, I think we can get this much revenue.
About this, yeah.
And then when it's actually time to put a product out, now we got to actually go talk to people, find out, are they willing to pay something for what it is that we want to sell?
How much? Yeah.
Nice. But I would say the same thing is true, maybe, around all the marketing plans and everything else, right? They're not well thought out and well developed before we get to the launch stage.
No. Well, there's a lot of really great talent in the companies we've worked with, and they know what to do. They're professionals, but they lack insight about their customers. They don't have clear definitions of their market segments. Their positioning is for crap. They have no idea what they're doing. We have a great product. Please buy it from us. We're good guys. They know little about their competitive landscape. They have no distinction of what their advantages are as an organization. They would just look through the lens of the product. They're not honest about the barriers that they have, like what to overcome. Like, we'll get to that. That's not a big deal. And and they really don't have a clear understanding about how their customers make a buying decision. They have no idea what their customer preferences are. So they go, oh, sales will take care of that. And so it just becomes a set of random acts of marketing. It's just, let's try this on Facebook. Let's do this.
Yeah, nice. So when I learned the launch class, there were two really big ahas in that class. I mean, there's lots of ahas in that class, but there were two really big ones that I want to bring up today. The first one is the difference between launch and release.
Yeah.
And can you just give 30 seconds on that?
Yeah, it's part of the confusion of using the term launch. And too often, particularly in the world of software, we think of we're going to launch this and we're going to launch that. We launch a website, we launch a new pricing scheme. There's anything, but we get a little confused about a release versus a launch. Release is something that our development and R&D teams actually build. It could be software, it could be a thing, and there's iterations of that continuously. But a launch is a bigger deal. With launch, we're trying to drive toward achieving a business objective. A launch isn't just get it out the door and give it to sales so they can sell. It's about creating some acceleration, right? To get to where we're trying to go faster and faster. And that's really the distinction. A launch is about creating acceleration, and a release is just an important set of things that we built.
Yeah, I always thought of a release as, okay, I got a check mark, I got it done. And the launch is, how do I go have impact in the marketplace?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the second huge aha, which comes right on the back of that, and that is I can launch way more than just products.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't have to be a new release or a new product. And since I learned that, now let's tie it back to pricing. Say, I want to launch a new pricing model. I want to launch a new pricing characteristic. What kind of advice or thoughts, what should we be thinking about as we go launch prices?
Yeah. Okay. So let's, there's a couple scenarios there I would be looking for if I were going to follow our framework. And the first question is, how much do we know? Why are we increasing the prices? Why are we changing the prices? Could be an increase, could be a decrease, could be a bundling. Why are we doing that in the first place? Is this an internal motivation for us because we believe we can get more money? Are we responding to a competitive problem where we have to make a reduction? Or you know what? Maybe we got an old product. This is one of the ahas I got from the pricing class. So yeah, maybe we just want to dump an old product and get rid of it. So let's just keep jacking up the price until people say, "Fine, I'm leaving." All right. So if I were going to approach launching a new pricing structure, I'd first start with what were the underlying motivations. So objectives again. So what are the objectives? What are we trying to accomplish? So with objectives, I can put measurement in place. The other thing I have to do, and let's just talk about a price increase because that's the more common scenario.
And it's scary to everybody.
It's scary. We don't want to raise prices, but costs constantly go up. Regulatory pressure increases cost. Right now, everybody's cost is going to go up, guaranteed. So what we have to do is have a really good understanding of our customers and what will our competitors do, right? They're not going to stand still. They might use it to their advantage, or they might just sneak right behind us and increase their prices too. But in any time prices are increased, somebody somewhere is going to be upset. Their feathers are going to be ruffled. That's to be expected, and you should put that into your calculus, that it is possible, and I would say likely, that you will lose some customers when you increase your price. Now, some of you are in an amazing position. You got your customers so locked in, you could throw dirt at them all day and they won't leave, right? So for the few of you out there like that, consider yourselves very lucky. But for a lot of organizations, that's not the case.
A lot of what you just said sounds to me like pricing, not like launch.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's common sense. I would love to hear, how many steps are in your framework?
There are 13 donuts, 2 phases.
Okay, what are the 2 phases? Can I hear those?
The 2 phases are the planning phase, so plan, and the execute phase.
Oh, doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, simple. We like to keep things simple.
Nice.
Right? If it's simple, it's easier to adopt.
I'm trying to fit price in there because I want to understand this, right? I want to learn something new today, how I can do a price increase better because I run it through your launch framework instead of doing what I've always done naturally or intuitively?
All right. So here's what I would start with. In the assessment component, we look at the whys. We try to identify the whys. Why are we doing this? When do we want it to happen? It's the whys and the whens. And then from that, we collect the information and then transition. And we do what's called a product launch planning session. So you get an inner core of key stakeholders, and you get the lay of the land. That's all you're trying to do. So you're trying to avoid surprises down the road by doing this. Then from that, the output of that is a formulation of the objective. So what does success look like? So if we're going to introduce a new pricing model, let's say we're doing a price increase, we might be looking at things like how many adopters did we get of the new pricing? How many customers decided to leave us? So that we can put some objectives in place, like maybe within 6 months, we want to see all renewals on the new pricing scheme with an accepted loss of less than 5%, right? So a churn of 5%. So now I've got that defined.
And I might have a win-loss number today that I have as a baseline, and I'd say I want that to go down by 3% max or something like that.
Right. I can put a line in the sand and say, this is what success looks like.
Yep.
And then I can examine more market-focused areas like, okay, I can look at my customers, my segments, my competitors, and my positioning. So those 4 things all interlock. So which customers are more likely to embrace, which ones will, some will go, yeah, okay, whatever. And then whatever, the price has gone up. Some will go, I don't like it, but I'll pay it. And some will say, go pound sand, and they'll run away. Right. So that helps you calculate, what your loss rate, say you lose 3 to 5%, but the rest of them are paying the higher price. So who cares? We're making more money, right? Yep. The other one is to evaluate how your competitors are going to react to that. So by comparing, like you said, win-loss, I could very quickly see, oh, wait a minute, we are now losing deals to competitor X, right? And then segments. Do we need to take more of a segmented approach to our pricing? Another secret I learned from Mark, one of the ahas. And then how am I going to do, so I have positioning here. We have positioning in the framework. How am I going to communicate that to my customers? All right. Obviously a price increase is hard to spin as it's good for you, but there could be ways you could do that. Like we'll be able to continue, you might increase the price, but improve the service of customer support.
Examples, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah. One was Netflix's most recent price increase. We're raising your price so we could invest more in original content.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I saw that. I chuckled a little on that one, but good for them. At least they gave it a try.
The one that I actually really, really liked is Zipcar. And if you go back to the beginning of Zipcar, the CEO sends out a letter to everybody saying, we totally messed up. If we don't raise prices, we're going out of business.
Well, that's honest.
Right. And it's good for you. If you want the product, guess what? We're raising prices.
Yeah. If you like it, this is what we have to do. Sorry, everybody. Yeah. Right. And then I would look at, how I communicate that. So I don't have to worry as much as the advantages and the barriers in our scheme, in our framework, because I already have them as customers. So I have less to worry about there. But I might be looking at customer preferences. So who am I likely to lose as a result of increasing prices? Yep. And then my launch plan is fairly straightforward. It's more of customer communication and internal communication to my sales team and my sales channel, my channel partners. But then once I've got everything locked and loaded and I've got my dates scheduled, then I'm going to make sure my team is prepared. I'm going to try to prepare the market as best I can. A letter like that, like, hey, we screwed up. We're going to have to change prices, increase prices. Fine. And then we have a go step. So it's like, once I've got everybody prepared, boom, let's flip the switch, and then let's accelerate through it and get there as quickly as possible. And in the end, the very last donut is review. So it's a retrospective. What did we do well? What did we do bad? What would we do again? What did we learn from that? There are many lessons to be learned from watching Netflix pricing changes. So
Yes.
lots to be learned by all of us, and it's so public. So yeah, I mean, the framework works in this scenario. The good thing is you can shortcut it a little bit because you already know your customers.
Yeah. What I like about frameworks, though, of any type, is it's a structured way of thinking through a problem, so you don't forget something, you don't miss something. So if a step doesn't apply, that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, the thing I researched on earlier this year, and it was the distinction between models, frameworks, and processes. And they actually do have distinct definitions. And what I liked about the definition I found for a framework was, to build on what you said, frameworks provide structure and direction. And they're designed to integrate with other frameworks. So I can plug in how I do things here. I can plug another thing in there. And they're like Lego blocks in many ways. They should interlock.
Nice. There's a concept in pricing that I don't talk about very often, and I probably will start talking about a little bit more coming up in the near future. But we have product roadmaps.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously launch is I shouldn't say obviously, but it feels reasonable to me to say launch sits on a product roadmap.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely inflection points in the roadmap where you say, okay, here's a launch, there's a launch, and so forth. Yeah.
And so there's this concept called a pricing roadmap.
Yeah.
And what I like about the concept of a pricing roadmap is pricing is such a complicated thing, just like launch or building a new product, which I'm lumping those two together, sorry. But pricing is such a complicated thing, and it touches so many different departments, so many different areas inside a company, that it makes a ton of sense to have a roadmap, just like we have a product roadmap.
Right.
It says, hey, we're going to do a price increase at the end of the year. We got to make sure everybody knows this. Here's what the game plan looks like. Here's how we get everybody ready for it. And so it's just like putting together that launch plan.
Hey, maybe what we should do when we get off this call is we should come up with a set of donuts for you, and you can have your own price launch framework. I'll give you different colored donuts even. How about that?
I have tried to stop eating donuts, Dave. Thank you. Well, our timing is pretty much up here, but I have to ask this one question because I always do.
Yeah.
What's one piece of pricing advice you would give our listeners that you think could have a big impact on their business?
Always assume that your customers are willing to pay a higher price than you think that they do, because you often look through your own lens of what you would be willing to pay, not what the market would be willing to pay. You can always go down. It's hard to go up.
Nobody's ever given me that answer, and I really like it. The concept that people probably are willing to pay more than what we're asking them to or what we think they will, I think that makes so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, and if you get it way wrong, you can always have an incentive, right? You can have a forever sale if you wanted to. There's always something you could do. But yeah, I think the lesson that I learned is that, don't be afraid to charge a higher price, because you'll be surprised at how many people will actually pay for it. And the problem is we look through our own lens. We'll go, oh, I would never pay for that. I'm like, wait a minute, you're not even our target customer. Of course you wouldn't pay that.
Right.
But hey, people are paying, $120,000 for a Tesla S, and other people will say no way, and they'll go buy a nice economy car like a Kia or a Hyundai. There's something for everybody.
That's what we call market segmentation.
I do.
Nice.
I learned that from Mark too.
Dave, thank you so much for your time today. If anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
You can go to our website at braincraft.com. That's, as you can see from behind me, for those of you who are listening, is brain, B-R-A-I-N, like the thing in your head, and craft with a K, K-R-A-F-T.com. We have actually a Facebook page. So there's a Braincraft Facebook page you can search for, and you can put any kind of comments you want there. And we just have a general email if you want called hello. So hello@braincraft.com. You could, it'll come into one of us and we'll respond to it.
All right. Thank you very much, Dave.
You're welcome. When are we going to go out and do that putt-putt with shotguns thing again?
Oh, sporting clays is what that's called.
Oh, sporting clay. I call it putt-putt with shotguns. Yeah.
Come visit me in Reno. We'll go.
Okay. All right.
Episode 88 is all done. Would you please leave us a review? We take those very seriously. They're very valuable to us. And if you leave us one, I will read it on the air. Here's one that we just received. You Ibanez on Apple Podcasts, and I apologize for messing up that name. The title must have this podcast. Mark Stiving is doing such a great job helping pricing to broaden the vision for business. Highly recommended. Well, thank you very much. Don't forget to join our free community at championsofvalue.com. There you'll see everything I publish for free, the memes, the blogs, the videos, the podcasts. We put links to them all right there. And if you have any questions or comments about the podcast or pricing in general, feel free to email me, mark@impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact.